Some call me the Oracle. Some call me Whitestar. Aquasol. Salal to spokes. Tactically, Whitestar Eagle Visions. I earn these names traditionally. I'm a pipe carrier, a lodge keeper. I'm a prophecy teacher. Right now, as a species, we are going through this amazing revolution. And you're a part of it. You know, way back in 2012 when nothing happened, so much happened. But they forgot to tell you. They forgot to show you. I'm sure you recognize the whole world is in a real interesting place right now. And the prophecies are clear that the past is coming to an end, is being dismantled as gently as possible, but definitively being dismantled. And you, as a human, are becoming so much more than you used to be. New chakras, frequencies, new energies, new awareness, new science. You want to keep up? Come hang out with me once a week. We're going to talk about some really interesting stuff. Weird is the new sexy, they tell me. So come on, let's get weird together. Attack ice. See you soon. Hi. So today I'm going to interview the very special guest, me. I wanted to just take this opportunity to first and foremost thank some of the more and most amazing guests that we have had over the last, probably almost 2 months now. And asking the question of awakening. And I'd like to kind of just anchor in and spend a little bit of time with you and talk about where we've been and maybe where we're going in a good way. And, just a review, just to check in, It's springtime here in Canada anyway. And, it always gets me leaning in towards planting seeds. I have been spending time in the garden. Go ahead, try and keep me out. For me, anchoring into the garden and working with the soil, and as it warms up and becomes a thing, dragging the compost out and, making sure the old coffee grounds get mixed in there in that good way, preparing the soil on the beds. I really value that exchange. I really value that time. And it's not just a good opportunity for pondering and thinking about life, which is kind of how guys do it. Ladies, if you ever really want to have a serious conversation with your man, if you ever really want to get him to a place where he might even share what's going on behind the spinning wheel, get him to do something with his hands. Yeah, well, maybe not that. Painting a fence, or, maybe not building a fence, because that can get noisy at times. Get out of my way, But if you can get him focusing on something, I guarantee that your odds will increase dramatically in being able to have a conversation with him, rather than sit down on the couch and, oh, sweetie, I think we should, guess what I saw on Oprah today, right? So, and so there's a lot of value to that. I don't know, call it what you want, puttering, tinkering, just kind of building stuff, and all us guys are like that. It doesn't matter whether you can't even talk yet. You're still puttering around. You're doing these little mini projects to save the planet in a good, healthy way, all the way up until when you're the old guy and you got a jar full of different size screws, right? And jars of them, sorry, because there has to be some form of organization to it all, And, so it, yeah, this is a time to anchor in for me. This is a time to listen to the earth. It's actually interesting. I'm currently in Coast territories, unceded territories, West Coast Canada, and this is matriarch country. For the most part. I've heard of some islands, maybe north past Alert Bay, Village Island, etc., that may actually be patriarchal. But for the most part, the teachings are pretty sound that, Coast Salish, Salish Seas is matriarchal country. And this is interesting because, of course, so many people go to this place of matriarchal, and women are in charge, and just the bosses, and it's this tyrannical, matriarchal dynamic. But I suppose maybe, it could go to the extreme, obviously, in either direction, in a bad way. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the reverence towards women, And I'm sorry if I'm insulting anybody politically, by not creating pronouns. I'm just going to stick with the old times language, if you don't mind here. Keep up. And, the women are connected to everything in their world. When guys, when she's going off about, hey, that fence needs fixing and it needs painting and it needs da 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 da, to be honest, there's actually a part of her that's trying to share with you that she feels so connected to that fence that when it gets into disrepair, she thinks you're disrespecting her a little bit. And I know it sounds a little twisted, and it's the long way around to get to why didn't you just say paint the frickin', I get it, that's how we receive it, but that's so often how it's sent. And so stepping up and recognizing that she's not telling you you're lazy, she's just sharing that this is an ouch in her world. And if you are a guy, and you're stepping up in that traditional manner too, you'd make sure that fence got painted. And like I offered earlier, then that's when the lady's going to corner you and say, hey, I watched Oprah today, and you got nowhere to run, you're painting, right? So you might as well just lean in, guys, and share a cool moment, and build something together, create something together. And I believe in happy spouse, happy house kind of an idea versus even hey, how you doing, versus even just happy wife, happy life. And I've been through the ringer, I promise. I this current relationship that I'm in is not my first go around. I know, kind of as far as I'm concerned, I've seen kind of the best and the worst of it, and made some horrible mistakes. And I can share with you that I am a better version today. Looking at you, all wise and Whitestar-ish and Oracle-like. I'm a lot wiser today than I was way back when, and not all of my relationships ending were their fault, right? Sometimes I was an ass, and sometimes I oh boy, we could all look in the mirror and see all the times that you were an ass. You sabotaged, and you just, things happened, honest to goodness, ego and power and passions and all sorts of things can go sideways, in a life. And we, if we're doing it right, we're taking ownership for those. And we can't, I can honestly say I don't look back with many regrets. I made some really bad choices, horrible choices in this lifetime, but it doesn't even necessarily mean I regret any of them. Because in the moment I had that opportunity. I took that opportunity to have those conversations with myself. And when I was making those good choices, I was making those choices conscientiously in the moment. This is what I'm doing today, and this is on purpose. There isn't going to be somebody or someone at the end of the day that I can turn and say, they did that to me. They made me. I don't coerce very easily. It's just, never been a thing. I pride myself on making my own good, free choices. And that has been a matter of just pride. No, there's more than that. There's a serenity, there's a kingship. There's a something that's inside of me that I know we all have, that connection to your own personal juice, your own personal power, Yeah. I don't share this with everyone. Now I guess I am gonna, but this is, of course, Seed of Creation, Metatron's teachings, and that's some pretty deep stuff. I had this tattooed on my solar plexus. Now, I take off my shirt and flex for you, but I don't know if we're rated for that. Greenpeace chasing after me, etc. But anyway, I had that tattooed on my solar plexus in my journey, and I did that. My very first tattoo is actually right up here on the shoulder. I had a gifting from a friend of mine, and for a tattoo. And I stepped in and I designed it myself. And it's, this one I might be able to show off, but it's my Canada flag saying "Made in Canada," and under it, it has the barcodes for my books, actually, and which is kind of cool and neat. And he actually copied the barcode, from my books, and tattooed it in there. Thank you so much, Chris Ryson, Sterling Tattoos up in what's that? Peace River? No, not Peace River. Grand Prairie. It's up there. He's up there now anyway. And so I got that first tattoo. Thank you, Wendy. And I loved it. But I also had a recognition immediately of the impact that it had on my person. And I'd already learned, because I actually had a earring in this left ear, the cool ear, not the other one. I had this earring that I recognized had an influence on my system. So much so that on purpose, I always wore a hematite bead for the longest time, because that would enable me to remain anchored. And I did that up until 212. In 212, that new chakra opened up, that black sun chakra, if you like, that chakra that's anchoring us into that underdeep, the underworld, the great beneath. There's so many different conversations around it, both Masonic and Muslim teachings. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I mean, this would actually be a really good time maybe to do some research on it, because there's a lot about prophecies that are coming true around the planet, and there's some stuff hidden in there that I think you're going to want to pay attention to, for sure. But so anyway, Metatron's cube and all the Metatron's teachings themselves are actually quite powerful. What's fascinating, of course, is that this version of it is the 2D vibration of it, basically, with all the sharp edges and what have you that's involved in it. And this relatively man-groomed, the original vibration of this is actually moving and soft in corners. And, it's not very often, if ever, you're going to find a very straight line in nature. Nature itself has this ebbs and flows and tides, and it weaves itself together in such a powerful way. And, yeah, sure, every so often you might find some obsidian. That's the sharpest edge ever, but it's not so common in nature, But anyway, that's a side note and opinion and all that stuff to be sunk our teeth into at some other point. I had this put over my chi chakra because I found that I could manifest kind of whatever I wanted. Can you imagine having that juice, having that power? I mean, it literally was in a place where I recognized I did that, and I did that other thing over there, and I created and manifested this, and I knew when I was flexing, and I knew when that landed, and the ramifications and the ripples, And I also learned through trial and error, and I got there not just because I was born with juice. Anybody who's ever met me and spent any time in my space, I mean, there's a vibration there. So I've never met me actually technically that way, but I keep on hearing this, and I can appreciate that that's part of why Whitestar means North Star, right? This exploding star energy, this bright light energy, this, that's a juice that I've always been able to direct and flex. I can dim it a bit, but I can't make it go away. And you see, I see that in everybody else also. I know that the human aura fills this 30-foot space, but I know that I showed up on this planet with that on max. No filters, just as fast and full on as possible. I mean, noisy. Even though I'm not making any voice noises. For sure. Although I am a drummer, I suppose. That's kind of anyway, dissecting and redirecting. But I put this on there because the chi chakra is that chakra of I am, of this is who I am and how I show up in my world. And I found myself with that relationship, with that tug of war of self-esteem, from, did I really do that? Yeah, you're an idiot to think so, right? Life is random, coincidence, all this stuff, right? The monkey chatter and, that shadow guy and all that stuff, having that dance and that conversation, which I swear to goodness is so healthy. I think you have to challenge yourself. I think you have to ask those questions. Am I nuts? I think you have to ask these, if you're doing the deep dive right, in my opinion, if you're doing it right, you're dancing with that, I think every great scientist was also on the verge of madness on a regular, basis, Yes, and this is, exactly, produce the blurry photos, exactly, Sasquatch, etc., right? And that's because of that emanation that I'm talking about, especially Sasquatch. Sasquatch do that
naturally. It's what they are. It's how they are. They only come into that physical form itself, that 3D form, in order to perform tasks here on the planet, on this dimension, if you like. Sasquatch teachings from what I know, personal experience, as well as what I've received from a variety of different cultures. Sasquatch come here from someplace else. And for all intents and purposes, from what it appears, they come here for the sex. Big feet, ladies, I'm not kidding. I'm kidding, of course. Um, but the dynamic is that it's kind of like in the fourth dimension, the physics don't work right. You can't, sperm, egg, the birds and the bees stuff, right? That doesn't work the same way when there's no 3D, when there's no physics, there's no electron exchange, there's no, none of that is taking place on that frequency and that vibration. And so they would come here, and I believe, no, I know that I've received this teaching, and I'm still exploring the belief of this, is that the reason we as humans actually even found the 3D dimension is because Sasquatch was coming here first, and we observed it, and we mimicked, and this is interesting, and whether there's any truth to that, because it seems to me there's a whole bunch of different creation and organizations who believe that they invented it, and maybe it all got invented simultaneously. It's in creation and connection and all that. It's another story, but Sasquatch teachings are that they come here to make it the baby because they need that physical connection, that physical particle exchange to take place for that to become a reality. And they stick around as a family, and when the baby can kind of start phasing back to that fourth dimensional natural state of consciousness, natural state of being, then of course they disappear as a group, en masse, as a family, if you like, right? To come back, very much like salmon, to that same space and place, on a return holiday, right? And maybe a second or third or 12th honeymoon, I guess, is how you might want to put it. And so they've been coming here way before we showed up, and will likely be coming back here to this dimension, way after we've kind of long gone as well. And that's the story and the legend. I can't prove none of it, but that's how I heard it, and feels right in my heart. And so that's passed that on as well as I can to you. We're going to bring some Sasquatch, experts on here, because Thunderbirds. Oh my goodness. Well, what's interesting is Canada is technically Thunderbird country. We have eagle and condor dance being done specifically these days. I know Phil Lane Jr., hats off and to him and all the work that's being done with him and that whole crew of that whole council of international beings coming together. We are actually in Palenque, and our group opening up and doing the good cleaning work, if you like, in Palenque a week before they stepped in, and eagle and condor moment there in Palenque, exactly a week afterwards. And it was an honor to be there to sweep the place in a good, healthy way before they showed up, And so anyway, that's all going on there, but it actually makes reference, of course, to the condor being, Mexican, if you like, at least as the teachings as I've received, condor being Mexican. The eagle, of course, is U.S. because it's all over there. They're minted on their money, etc. And here across the border, into the northern hemisphere, we've got the Thunderbirds in the Thunderbird country, for sure. And I hear stories still. I mean, I don't know how much truth there is to it, but I hear stories that there are nests that still exist in, up in that northern country, especially along the coastlines. In places that maybe haven't seen, anything much different than a moccasin for maybe still. I mean, we're talking hundreds of years, right? When people think about even just British Columbia, in of itself, British Columbia is massive, in comparison to so many other countries, that exist, even never mind provinces or states, and it's interesting because the largest portion of the population of British Columbia exists on this little tiny spot, in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, right? Right where, basically it doesn't snow, I guess, maybe a little bit, but the temperature here and the relationship with nature is very temperate. And although it does rain quite a bit, that's where we get our cedar from. The relationship you can have with this space is actually very authentic and genuine most of the year around. Whereas in you know, even just a few hours north of here, I mean, it can be wintry, so much so that everything goes to sleep, you know, during the winter time. And there's kind of not a whole lot of relationship with nature and, you know, those exchanges, you know, through that space. And there's majesty to it, and there's grace, and there's, you know, there's nothing like walking through the woods after a fresh snowfall. It's so quiet, so quiet. Yeah, you know, and so there's a, you know, a dynamic that takes place there as well, right? You know, for sure. So anyway, I've been rambling and going off here, off track, because I really started, you know, just really wanting to thank all the guests that have come on here, you know, and where I've been, and looking back at even in my own small world, you know, for sure. You know, talking about their own awakening symptoms, right, and an awakening process and what that looks like for them. We had, well, Jolene, you know, Jolene Hardistry, coming to us from Alaska. I mean, honest to goodness, this lady was raised on trap lines. This lady didn't, you know, some people dream or even fantasize, or, you know, even try and imagine with some form of creativity, that Daniel Boone living in the woods kind of, you know, mentality and lifestyle. But until you've even come close, and I've come close a couple of times, loved it, but I wasn't necessarily like that. And to be able to bring that out, you know, from the woods, and talk about her engagement with life and her engagement with the world, you know, for better or for worse. You know, I really appreciated what she had to share and how she had to share it, and her vulnerability and her power, right? To, you know, and you know, and so we got all the way from Alaska all the way down to, you know, we had Jennifer just recently from Texas, right? And so we're all the way there, you know, and, you know, across the country the other direction. And from around the world, people they're coming together, you know, they're coming together because there's something going on, because there's an awakening taking place. We as a species are no longer the same people that we used to be. We have way more power and way more juice available to us than we didn't know how to handle before. You know, again, I proved to myself that when you know how to speak to the universe in a specific way, you can get what you want. And you can sing it into consciousness, you can will it into consciousness, there's lots of different ways for you to get it, you know. But I promise that a big part of the fuel is I am. When you're vibrating and manifesting, you have to be authentic in what you're projecting, what you actually want in your world. It can't be what your parents told you. It can't be what necessarily your government told you. It can't be necessarily what your SATs told you. There's each of us has this calling, this purpose, this reason, you know. And I know that it's upon all of us to seek out what that thing is. You know, it's not going to find you. This is not going to happen, right? You know, you might have to get out there and try a few different things before you realize that, wow, I'm really good at, and I love this. Yeah, you know, I had a visit just today with a dear friend of mine who loves to shop. Now, I've been to various locations around the planet with this lady, and I swear to God, I mean, every port of call we went to, and I've done cruises with her and all sorts of other traveling, and every port of call we went to, I would just give her money and watch her go. And I swear, I mean, we're talking the bazaars and, you know, the marketplaces, and she's in there with like with her elbows going, get out of the way, I got deals to make, you know. And she would come back with these treasures, you know, honest to goodness. And she loved every second of it, you know, every second of it, you know. And I'm reminded of a client of mine. Actually, she's actually watched a few of these. She's been in touch, and I appreciate, you know, who she is and how she is. And you know, I sat down with her, and, you know, she had some physical, you know, situations going on, and there was no way, you know, because of her age and, you know, her physical liabilities, that she was ever going to be a figure skater. Now, what's interesting is that, I pulled that out of the air while I was doing the psychic reading for her, because it's in her purpose, it's in her world, it was a big portion of what she was supposed to be about. And and I go, figure skater, and she looks at me and she starts to cry and she says, yeah, that's not going to happen, but yeah, it's always been the dream. And I looked again and sorted through the impressions that I had received in that reading, and I said, you don't even like to skate, you never did. She goes, well, you're right. I go, no, you want to be involved in figure skating, but you want to be involved in the costumes, you want to be involved in the choreography, you want to be involved in the showmanship and all that part of it, because that's what you love. And she went, oh my God, yes. I'm so happy to report that that's, she's involved in that industry now. She's helping making, these costumes, the showmanship, those aspects of it. And I share these, kind of two stories because, even if you think you know exactly what it is, you might still have to get involved in some way, shape, or form to sort out the subtleties. For sure. We can be as broad as, yes, I want to be a healer. Well, what does that look like exactly? There's lots of different versions of what that might be, right? And are you healing people or pets or cars, right? So there's lots of that to be dissected, lots of that. And on the way, David, I've always been a very diverse and active mind and curious like heck. And I manifested lots and lots of stuff, lots of adventures. Oh my goodness. And in hindsight, maybe some of those adventures I shouldn't have. There were a couple of times I manifested stuff. Not so much that I bit off more than I could chew. I'll share with you a wisdom that probably, if there was any regrets that I had in any way, shape, or form, it was so often that I would empower other people into positions that they couldn't manifest or maintain on their own, and that when I wasn't there to bolster them perpetually, there was a letdown, So if there's any resentments, that you want to, walk away from my many years, walk away maybe with that one, for sure. But otherwise, again, any choices that I made, that any pickles that I've created in my life, I'd be very happy to take on the chin, for sure. And I know that all these other people are built the same way. I hope, that, these guests that I brought on to share this space and share this time with, right? We have, I'm just, again, reflecting back, I'm very contemplative today. Have you noticed? And that's kind of interesting to me as well, because I'm in a space of sorting through, like so many of you, life. And I'm in Canada right now, yeah, and oh boy, is it getting to be a mess. And so here's the juxtaposition as well. If David gets what he wants, it's difficult to remain and just be the observer in that, right? Because that your influence on it is going to have an influence and an impact on the outcome, beyond the shadow of a doubt. Now, we all do that perpetually, all day, every day. That's what being human and living in this dimension is all about. We're literally manifesting it ahead of ourselves. We create, we manifest, even back, remember The Secret, that group of people, what the F do we know about, yada, yada, yada. They proved that, the particle behaves differently if the human isn't paying attention. So much so that when you dissect it into, it's, not just if a tree falls in the forest, does anybody hear? It's, does the tree even exist in the first place if there isn't a human or two there to manifest it appropriately? Right? So that tree may not even exist. It's just pure energy, just pure speculation, pure potential, until a couple of skidooers come by and go, hey, let's create a tree space over there, right? And then that happens. And then if there's no competition for that space, this is actually kind of a metaphysical 101 dynamic as well. There is so much juice available in the universe, and that juice is available for you, the metaphysician, to be able to direct into whichever it is that you want to manifest. You can use whatever ritual you want. You can use metaphysical teachings and premises, which is kind of how I choose to do it. Singing is a powerful, powerful tool. I don't care if you're good enough to make an album for yourself. Just singing, making noises, and trying to hit those appropriate tunes and frequencies as much as you can. And very specifically, singing is the heart speaking out loud. you know. And so, and it's in everywhere, whether you're choiring in the church or you're, singing in the sweat lodge, or, everywhere you go, there's the sacredness and the sound of song and singing as a part of the process. And that's a really big part of it, a much bigger part of it than I suspect most people even recognize. All the speeches in the world are great, but I promise it's when you get into that flow of sound and movement taking place, that's where you're really going to find your ability to plug in and manifest and juice and create. And again, whether it's a prayer or a spell, and I came into this lifetime understanding that the I am, the presence of my consciousness, the presence of my will on this planet empowers whatever it is that I'm projecting ahead of myself into fruition. And the more will that I pour into it, the more likely it's going to be. Now, granted, yes, if I'm pouring will and my intention is going forward, there is absolutely the physical dynamics that follow behind it, such as discipline of studying and paying attention to it, an interest level, showing some passion, feeling emotional, because the emotion basically is pouring and just fueling that ship that's moving in that direction, and so if I give a hoot about the manifestation, if I care if it's purple, it'll likely be purple. If I care that it's another color, it'll likely be another color, because it's our emotions are playing an integrated role with this. But it's still, if you like, the juice comes from I want that. I want that, and being conscious of it and singing to that. I want that. I don't care how you do it. Make fun if you like, but we just manifested, right? And so I put this on there because I wanted to be able to show up. I wanted to be able to bang, explode. I wanted to be, well, I guess that white star, again, that I carry the monocle of here, the North Star, I know I can fill that space, and I know I can direct chi, and I know I can direct life, and I have a intimate communion with frequency and vibration and all living things. These are truths to me, and these are truths to everyone. I just don't have any filters in between. Me and that tree are talking whether I like it or not, and again, I spend most of my days these days trying my best to teach others how to do exactly that same thing, just to remember that they can, But when I put this on me, my chi chakra, I did it actually in ceremony. I did some fasting protocols, similar to what I'd gone through for some namings and, and receiving bundles and other, sacred ceremonies. And I put myself through the fasting, and then I sat in the chair and I received this tattoo. And I did so on purpose because I found myself holding back, I found myself not quite knowing where the line is. Just because David gets everything that he wants doesn't mean David should get everything that he wants. It doesn't mean that it's even some pious portion of myself was creating a judgment in my space of morality and ethics and judgment again around the performance of that. Because there was a few times where absolutely I got an advantage. There's a few times absolutely. If you look back at my history, even from a very young age, I've done a lot of things, and I've been able to achieve a success that very few people can brag about, and in a good way or even an arrogant way. I was published early, and PhDs, and spoken at symposiums, and I've got this amazing career of being an oracle. I can go on and on and on and on, and check out my website. That's where you'll find a big chunk of it, right? But and I promise I never once, and this was the issue, is that I was shying away from, if it came to me and I was in competition with somebody else and I authentically saw that in their world it made a bigger deal, I'd back down, right? And in other cases, I felt that I wanted, and I flexed. And you know what I'm saying? And when I flexed, did it become an unbalance? Did it become unfair? You know, my inner liberal, you know what I'm saying? You know, it's coming from this place of, oh, was that fair? I don't know. I mean, you know, da 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 da. And, you know, the inner non-liberal of me goes, screw it, Darwin, right? You know, I mean, and it's about accomplishment, and it's about human potential, and it's about, and so it's a very interesting dynamic. And I know part of this is, I'm the eldest sibling, the eldest cousin as well, and you know, many of my circles and even friends growing up were, of course, that ilk too. It was, you know, sometimes it was my friends, but otherwise, you know, if it was any of the other siblings or cousins, they were younger people I was hanging out with, right? And so I always had this posture to begin with, this, but also this. And if anybody's, you know, the eldest out there, you know damn well it comes with a form of responsibility, because whether you did it or not, you should have known because you were the oldest. You know, I mean, there was always that default of, if anybody was going to take the blame, it was going to start with you, and you had to pass it downhill somehow, right? You know, for sure. And you know, when I've, you know, raised babies and into, you know, adults, you know, believe it or not, it's actually happened. And all I can say is, so I understand, I step up with a form of a sense of responsibility into that, right? You know, for sure. And so I was finding that I wasn't going right to the line. I was backing off on purpose. And then I started, you know, monkey chatter and, you know, self-analyzing. And to be honest, some men's group stuff, you know, got me to a place of, well, what if by backing off, I'm actually making the immoral choice? You know, what if by not showing up full potential, you know, I'm letting not just myself down and any potential um, benefit, you know, that I might gain from the achievement of these scenarios. But, you know, what if I was supposed to break a world record, right? For example, in the whatever, you know, figment of my imagination that I'm, you know, laying into here right now. But what if I was supposed to be the fastest? What if I was supposed to be the strongest, the biggest, the most creative, you know? And by backing off, I'm actually letting not just myself, but maybe a greater potential down, right? You know? And so it's that balancing act that I put this on for. Because when I did so, I called in the sacred dynamic of, if what it is that David wants is within the boundaries of what the spirit, the universe, you know, and all of its mighty and diverse potentials, is a much bigger computer than I am. If it believes that what it is that David, through the I am dynamic and flex, is within alignment of the universe, it's going to empower it. And if it's not within the universe, it's going to not empower it. And it's kind of interesting because it's it's given me an opportunity to actually tap into making good choices in my life too. People ask me all the time if I predict my own future, you know, and yes, I have, you know, functional crystal balls, no problem, and you know, of all shapes and sizes, and, you know, tarot card decks, and, you know, Ouija boards, and spirit connection and communion, and I mean, yes, absolutely, I have access to the universe in so many different flavors and languages. But I, on purpose, try not to predict my own future, you know, and I learned that one when I was a kid. You know, one Christmas, you know, I'd already caught Santa, you know, but still one Christmas, you know, just idly, you know, looking at the Christmas tree like so many of us do, and, you know, the music's going, and, you know, and this was a couple days before Christmas, and I psychically just unwrapped the gifts, you know, and had an opportunity. I didn't have to shake nothing, you know, I just unwrapped it, and I could kind of see and connect with it. And interestingly enough, Christmas morning, there was no surprises. And everyone else got surprises. Everyone else actually authentically opened up their presents, and they were new to them. And none of mine were, you know, including the socks I got, and including, maybe my sister doesn't remember this, but there was this on black velvet, she painted this chipmunk that was holding up a football. Yeah, yeah, and cutest thing ever, and she'd painted that for her big brother, and I'd already seen it. I'd already unwrapped it, and there wasn't any surprises for me. And so that was, when I look back on my world, probably one of the first opportunities that I had when I kind of had a bit of a regret. Had a bit of a yeah, yeah, that wasn't fun. That wasn't fun at all. And so I grew into that. And so I love the surprise of life. That doesn't prevent life from leeching back at me, though. There's plenty of ripples that come at me. And nowadays, if I have to make a choice in my life, I'll be looking at 2 or 3 doors, if you like. And, maybe a basis of kinesiology, shows up here. But, through my lens, one of those doors, one of those choices is glowing. One of those choices has energy attached to it, has chi attached to it. It's, kind of like Reiki, where Reiki is pure life energy, pure life chi, universal life energy is what Reiki means, actually, translated verbatim, from Japanese. It means universal life energy. And so, on everything that is a right choice, the universe supports that. It pours energy into it, chi, orgons, electrons, call it whatever you want. It supports life, in a big, powerful way. If it's not a good choice, the opposite happens. It actually consumes life. It potentially even rejects it, And so, when I make my choices, to be perfectly honest, so often I'm feeling my way. I've made really good choices in life, not knowing the heck. I have to go through that door. I have no idea what's on the other side of that door. I have no idea if it's good for me. I have no idea if it's bad for me. I have no idea if it's, but I can tell you that door is glowing. I have to be in that city at this time doing this thing, and then the next step will become obvious to me. And I get those moments all the time. And that's how I make my choices. I follow the energy. I follow, the river of life upstream, if you like. Being a Pisces, that's a good analogy for me. Yeah, for sure. And this has become an opportunity for me to go to the line, right? Because of spirit showing up and walking hand in hand and in alignment, with the universe, basically, in the benevolent way, there's no reason on this world that David can't get what he needs and wants. And even better yet, if by David getting what he needs and wants out of life, it benefits the larger community, and that I am absolutely altruistic enough to believe that one person can and does make a difference. It's actually, to be honest, been the only time that any changes ever really happened on this planet, is when you get a small select few group of insane individuals who believe they can make a difference. Those are the only ones who actually technically usually at the end of the day do. Hong Kong, right? So, it's just kind of how life is. It's kind of how it works, right? So, the large armies and all that stuff are gonna, back and forth and flex, and they'll keep drawing the different lines, in the sand, and do it in spray paint, because you're gonna have to change it again next week. But at the end of the day, it's always been, those select few, and yeah, I can appreciate that too, totally. And I believe that those select few were these folks that showed up as my honored guests this last week. Again, I'm sorting through their stories. I mean, they're just such amazing people. Every single one of them, in turn. And moving forward, I like to believe that this is my tribe. This is the year that's supposed to happen. This is the year that we're supposed to be anchoring in, finding our water, finding our tribe. Now, it's another story, and it's another life that I've actually I've been building self-sustainable communities for over 25 years, and I spent too much of my own money and a bunch of other people's money in the attempts. And at the end of the day, I'm convinced we've got a formula that not only works, for a community. For example, requires 200 people in order for a community to actually function, and 200 hats anyway. And there can be people who wears more than one hat, of course, but at some point you're going to need at least 200 hats to be worn in order for it to be completely sustainable for a whole community, a village, call it whatever you want, And so there's no way that it can be done alone. You can hermit up, of course, and you can, survive, but I'm talking about a thriving community. I'm talking about, life, showing up in a healthy way. And everyone gets to live a lifestyle of comfort and growth and empowerment, and everyone's fulfilling those hats that they appreciate and enjoy and got a skill in, never mind what they have to do because they're getting paid this exchange of money, right? And so I spent a lot of time developing these spaces, and had my name on 80-acre pieces of property. First one we stepped into was actually out Armstrong, British Columbia, and that's where I found the Ormus. I was led to that space. Cool story. I was looking. I had this vision of what this place was supposed to be and where it was supposed to be at. And this is what I'm talking about, how the future, leaches back at me, and I had these dreams and these knowings. And then I had some money coming in from TV money and a bunch of other things. And so I went looking, and I got led to this one place that was close by in the Okanagan area, and about 80 acres, an orchard, etc. Just the spirit had downloaded to me in the visions and everything else. But in my visions, the shop that was out behind the house, the main house, it was this yellowy, color that they make these things out of, a tin roof, and it's a very typical farm, barn shop, in Western Canada anyway. And but the issue is that the actual door, the pedestrian door to get into the shop, was on one side, and the big open carport area where we stored tractors and parts and all that stuff was on the other side. And in my dream, it was mixed. It was different. And so I actually called my dad to the computer. I said, "Dad, take a look at this." He went, "Oh my God!" He's drooling over the shop, because we're about to step into the space together, and. And I said, "Dad, would there ever be a time that you would switch these two? Where the door would be here and the carport on the other side?" And he's like, "Unless I burn the place down, but no, And I'm like, "Well, this isn't the place then." And he was so disappointed, right? So, but I swear to goodness, and here's a personal moment I'm going to share with you. I says, "Dad, I actually," this is kind of really, really, really powerful for me to anchor into, but a cool. Thank you for reminding me of this one. I remember I'm telling him, "Dad, I'm walking around the driveway talking to somebody, and I look and I see you sitting. The sun's coming in. You're just warming yourself like crazy. You're rolling up a John Wayne cigarette, like you always do, talking to this big black dog that's at your hip, and you're sitting there in a chair, and and I'm walking around talking to somebody, and I'm sharing, yeah." While I'm walking around the driveway, I'm sharing with the person, "Yeah, I bought this place specifically because I saw my dad and how happy he was." And what's interesting is I walked around the corner and I'm sharing this with this person. I bought it from my dad, and I recognized how happy he was. And I would stop dead in my tracks because there's my dad, exactly as just described to you, rolling up his John Wayne cigarette as he always did, talking to Willow the dog that's at his hip, right? For sure. And it was such a powerful, powerful, powerful moment for me. I fell in love with the universe in that moment. I don't know if the person, who I was talking with, knew it, but I actually kind of cried a little bit, and not because I'm wimpy or nothing, but, it really, that was powerful. That was probably, to be perfectly honest, the last time I actually saw my dad in that kind of, grace, that kind of it was a pretty powerful thing. He did pass away probably about, 4 months after that, but, yeah, so it's very interesting. So life will speak to you. Life will share back at you, for sure. Yeah. And when it's right, it's right. The things that I found on that property, oh my goodness. I found this painted on the foundation of the building, of the house that I was living on. But I found it after I got my tattoo. And I'd been the only owner of that for X amount of years. We found it because we had a deck that rotted out and needed replacing. We gutted it, and oh my God, what are you doing here? Honest to goodness, there it was, talking to us. It's also the same property I found that Ormus on. If you don't know what Ormus is, orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements. this is another big part of, my story, and, some of the things, the weird stuff that happens by paying attention, by listening, following the chi. If you go to a website, ommanna.com, 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 you're going to read a story that sounds a little bit phantasmal, but I swear it's true. I was there the entire time, and I discovered, as far as I know, the only naturally occurring source of Ormus currently on the planet. And there's been lots of others that have been looking for it. I know David Wolf has played in Hawaii quite significantly with some of it. Even David Hudson, who originally created the term Orms and Ormus to begin with, he had some stuff where there's some natural reactions. I happen to know that Tamahai Creek out here, up by Chilliwack area, BC, there's the stories and legends of, that being involved in there. And I know there was a product, Tamahai Gold, that actually was accessed from there, a guy by the name of John Savage. And so there are other naturally occurring sources of it on the planet, and you just got to go looking for it. And I've now gotten good at it. But this particular property led me right to this particular location, this specific spot, and I remember I discovered on, I think it was March 11th, 2011. I think that's the day that Fukushima blew, and, I got into fear. I got afraid. I got into a place of, oh my God, what am I going to do? This nuclear thing is going to explode and the whole world's going to radiate. And how do I protect my kids? And how do I walk this walk? And so I went out to my lodge, the Star Nation Lodge, Stone People's Purification Lodge, Sweat Lodge, if you like. We had a teepee there, and a kukuli quickly is well built, and it was kind of a Star Nation grounds, if you like, where we did lots of very cool ceremonies. And I built it guided to in this one specific area. It was probably about an acre big, maybe two. And so I anchored in and did ceremony there. And, I talked to whoever it is you believe I talked to, be it spirit or Star Nations or aliens or little green people or, purple mushrooms or whatever you believe. And it doesn't matter to me. I know I have a communion with something that's accurate, that's powerful, that's beyond me. And so I received this information of Ormus. Now, I'd played with Ormus about, I don't know, 10 years previously. I'd stumbled upon it because there was an off-duty cop who had a bottle of this stuff called Tamahai Gold in his pocket. And I was showing up. I had a client friend of mine who was a heroin addict who needed to go to counseling. If he didn't go, I knew he was going to die. And he had no one that was going to enforce or push him to do so. So I stepped up as not just his oracle, but as a friend. And I went with him. I held his hand for the first few meetings until he kind of got comfortable, and then he could continue on his own. So here I am in a heroin circle addict, and hi, my name's David, and I'm not a heroin addict. Sorry, but they're passing around this bottle, and this eyedropper under the tongue, to the next person. And I swear each one of these people is just one drop, and almost before they let go of the bottle again to the next person, there was, I saw this chi. I saw this explosion of light force energy. Light body was, wah. It's like changing a light bulb. I swear to goodness. And, the stories were, as they were passing, and it's just like, oh man, this stuff sure beats the withdrawals and the DTs. And apparently they were able to ingest this that once a day, and it made a big difference in how their system even recovered and to be able to step away, from addictions and such. And, do the research. This stuff is freaking amazing. In the Bible, they called it manna, philosopher's stone, Solomon's gold. Even the story of Excalibur is the same stuff, just different civilizations, different legends dancing around exactly the same substance. White gold powder, is another name for it. I've done full interviews. If you Google it, you'll see that, I've done some full hour-long interviews on this whole process and what it is and isn't. And I love sharing it, of course, we filled up a swimming pool with this stuff because, again, I talked to the universe. The universe said, hey, Ormus. So I got on the phone and I phoned up a friend of mine, a fellow by the name of Martin Pitella, who, oh my goodness, if you haven't spoken to him about your health yet, you need to. This guy is a walking encyclopedia of anything you may or may not need or understand. And, even just experientially, he's probably tried everything. you know, himself personally. So he understands what is and what isn't junk. And this is a man who's just walking as that, and it's a good lifetime anyway. I phone him up, and I'm like, I think I need a case of this stuff, all protecting myself and everybody from radiation, right? You know, because that's another thing it does well. And so he's like, a case? He's like, you sure? I mean, I sell maybe 2 bottles of this stuff a year, you know, you know. And I'm like, yeah, I need a case. And while I'm talking to him, it's like the room fills up with spirits, like a bunch of kids, and they're showing me this image of this underground volcanic activity feeding into these catacombs that eventually end up as an underground aquifer lake about 5 acres big, directly underneath my lodge. And so I'm like, and they're sending me this image, and I'm like, would you guys just shut up? I'm on the phone, kind of an idea. And finally, I break down talking to Martin, and I explained to him, is this even possible? Just like I shared with you, you know, underground. And he says, yeah, it's possible, but you're talking about the Fountain of Youth. And I'm like, oh yeah, maybe whoa. It's like, so how do I know? And he says, well, how do you know? He says, well, I mean, I could test for you. He says, but don't get your hopes up. I mean, you can imagine fortunes and lifetimes have been spent trying to find this, you know? And I'm like, I completely understand. How do I know? I'm being compelled by forces maybe you don't understand here, you know? And so to humor me mostly, also because I was buying a case of this stuff, to humor me mostly, I suspect, he says, you know, send me some samples, some water and some soil, and I'll test it for you. And I can tell you within 24 hours, basically, him and I having a conversation, he's like, this is amazing. I've never seen anything like this. This is amazing. You know, and so that I actually bottle it and I do sell it. And it's called omana.com, you know, this ormus drops and stuff like that. And it does everything that they say it does and more. And I found it there in that particular space and found it in that particular place by following that chi, following that energy, you know. This gave me permission lots of times to be able to hit my stride, to be able to not hold back for a second, you know. When I look back on this last month and a half, 2 months of people who are going through their awakening, I would have to say that the biggest thing I walked away from is that every single one of them got to a place in their world where they decided not to ever hold back again. You know, some of them didn't even know they had a line. They hadn't even achieved that opportunity in their world of crossing the line to look back and say, oh man, that was me. I was the ass. Right? You know, they're so busy playing that nice side. They're so busy playing that safe side. Right? You know, maybe you need a badass tattoo that's going to remind you to go to the edge, to go to the line, max out. You need to be, because I need to be, and I'm talking about me, because when I watch this later, I'm going to say, David. And I go, yes, because it's my name. David, you need to step it up. Don't play small for nobody. Don't play small for nobody, because if you're playing small, you're letting someone else down. You know, I need to, like a puzzle, and I'm one of those pieces of the puzzle. I need to find out where my squiggly lines end and my bumps and all that. There's all these puzzle pieces, all these different weird shapes and styles to it, you know. Well, I need to find out where all my weird shapes and styles are, because then I can fit in perfectly once you found out where all your wiggles and styles are, you know, because then we can understand how we fit together, you know. And just like a puzzle piece, it could be that, you know what, they kind of fit together, but not quite. But eventually, if I know me well enough, those not quites aren't going to anchor in and just cause mischief and plug up that space for the perfect fit. You know, so you got to kind of fill that space. You got to kind of, and again, when I say yeah, I'm talking about me. I am, you know, because it really is about that. And so it's really important for me as Whitestar to fulfill and fill my space. Time to explode, starseeds. Time to step up. Time to not hold back. Time to take accountability and responsibility. Be the light. All those cliches I can throw at you. Discover your own Ormus. Find. Discover your own world, you know, your power and your passion, your joys, Because every one of those people, myself included, who hit that awakening state, stepped past any personal restrictions and just kind of explored, tried some stuff. You know, you can start by being the rebel. Literally, just you can start by planting a seed these days. Grow a carrot. Oh my goodness, the things you're going to learn about yourself just by growing a carrot, for example. You know, for sure, just simple things. It doesn't have to be large. You don't have to, bite off more than you can chew, but start chewing on something. You know, for sure, it's time for this change. It's time for this evolution. It's time for this revolution within yourself at this point. Well, so I meandered now for an hour. And in there, I hope there was some gems for you. As us elders, we tend to just do this. And next week we're going to have, another few more guests, and I'll be bringing them in. But every so often, I'm going to anchor in here, and I'm going to want to just share and ramble. Just oracle to, to you and to me, and to check in. Be the light. Love you guys. See you next week.